Good morning, Biblionauts. I was watching David Novak's channel, and he sort of like opened a very interesting question about whether or not reading is essential to a good life. And of course, his answer from the beginning is no, it is not essential. But I mean, I wanted to give my piece of experience, my own conclusions about this, which are incredibly simple and quick. So this is gonna be a very short video. But before sort of like delving deeper into the aspects in which reading is necessary or required or anything like that, he also reads a really nice extract from an author whose name escapes me now, but that I'm definitely gonna check out, about the etymology of relevance and how relevance and relief are related, and what exactly determines the relevance of something. And to a degree, that reflection seems to imply that relevance is relatively subjective, and I agree with that. Relevance that has nothing to do with quality or anything like that. It's very much a cultural thing, and therefore the relevance of something might not be the same for different individuals, right? Then he talks about a series of books that are sort of going on right now, a series of videos that are going on in the booktube community, which I've been meaning to join since I cannot do a bookshelf haul yet because I don't have all my books with me. There is this series that was started by David Wiley. It's bookshelf bookshelf library essentials. That's it. That Steve Donaghy is also doing, and some other people are also doing, and that I'm definitely gonna join because I do have some of my essentials here, but I do not have all of my books. But the point of those essentials are sort of like the relevance that certain books have in your library. How much do you revisit them, right? At the end, this is a question about the canon, but about a personal canon. You know that every Thursday or some Thursdays I read from a notebook in which I transcribe my own favorite poems. Not really favorite, but canonic poems. Poems that I go back to. Poems that continue to speak to me throughout the passing of the years. So that's sort of like my poem essentials are sort of like coming out in some of the Thursdays whenever I title those Thursdays as a favorite poem or anything like that. And I mean, I guess the reason of the conversation about relevance in that kind of video is that he's trying to get at the question of like what relevance has reading to your life. In what sense does reading become relevant and therefore necessary for you to leading a good life? And he touches on many different topics, but the overall conclusion is that reading is not necessary, yet he still considers that it can reach your life, right? He appeals to like Bertrand Russell's sort of like opinions, which it goes back to ancient times. I think it was Plato who said that the unexamined life is not worth reading, not worth living. And I think Socrates, who was Plato's mouthpiece. I agree with that. I think that sometimes that is confused, in the sense that to read and to examine life are two completely different things. Reading is not more likely to bring examination to your own life than films or listening to music or anything else. They are the cognitive funambulism of someone else that you are sort of like processing through visual or auditive or whatever means that you have. But I don't think that reading necessarily implies examination of your own life. So I don't think that, I feel like many dubros would claim that, like you have to read because that will lead you to examine your life and that will somehow improve your overall life quality, which for them always means your bank account statements. It all goes down to your productivity. I don't think that reading is necessary. I think that thinking is. I think that contemplation and like observation of the world in which you sort of like orbit through until you suddenly stop being as a whole is necessary. But I don't think that reading is a requirement for that. As a matter of fact, some of the people with like the greatest mental clarity that I've met were not only non-readers but agraphs, people who never wrote. Like a fisherman in Morocco, a cave diver in Mexico, people that had no relationship whatsoever with reading. And I myself, if we are talking about leading a good life, if that has to do with a happy life, I could not be happy without reading or without writing on the long term, because I have an insatiable curiosity, and I know that the more tangible, more physical world around me would not be enough for me to be satisfied in my sort of like intellectual hunger or gathering or whatever. But if I look back, I'm only 26, but I consider myself to have lived already a couple of lives. And if I look back and I had to make a top 100 best moments ever lived, reading wouldn't be in any of them. The act of writing maybe would be part of a couple of them, but even though writing is so essential to my identity, it wouldn't even occupy such a big space. Most of those moments would be me out there in the world, being absorbed by something that has to do with like interaction with others or interaction with some other form of being, or just with the world itself, like climbing a mountain or playing with my dogs or having sex with a partner in some inappropriate place. None of those things would have any relationship with reading whatsoever. Of course, those interactions become much richer when you read and have an intellectual. Again, reading and thinking are not necessarily related, but whenever the other person has sort of like a mind of their own, and you are both sort of like somewhere around the same intellectual, not capacity, but hunger and interest, and let's say that both of your emotions go at a similar pace, and they're both, the faster they go, the more that you know, the more that you want to know, the more that excited you are about a subject, and the more you know about it, the richer your conversations are going to be. That's been my experience. And that, in a more collateral way, certainly relates to reading, and certainly relates to thinking as well. So I think that at the end, like, we go full circle, and I would say that the unexamined life might be worth living, but not so much. Certainly reading is reading and thinking, which are not, again, the same thing, but that people tend to relate. I feel like they should be requirements, not so much for your own quality as a being, but for others. I feel like to live in a community, to live a communal life in harmony with others, having a certain knowledge of social rules and social narratives that keep that community together certainly helps. I feel like part of the reason why our society is fragmented nowadays, it's because not only history but many other social and cultural aspects are being forgotten or completely denied. So communal life can be highly enriched by both reading and thinking and observing the world around you. Now, if you are not a very social person, maybe it's not so necessary. Most of the people that I said I have met that were some of the most interesting people that I've ever seen and met in my life, and that gave more for me to think about, and some of the most incredible experiences were not necessarily readers. It's because they were in interaction still with the world in a different way. And reading is only one of the many ways in which you can sort of like transmit the experiences, the stories, and the narratives of your age, your time, your cultural background, and the world and historical point in which you are. I feel like I repeated myself there, but you know what I mean. So I think that after all, probably reading is not required, but advisable for a richer and more harmonious life with others in community, and for more enjoyable interactions. And also, yes, if I look at someone's eyes, and I know that I have read and I have understood the concept of evolution, and I know that that's a feature that's evolved in a bird's eyes and in a pig's eyes and an octopus eyes, completely separately. That somehow there is an intelligent aspect to the way we evolve, right? That inherently creates a depth to the narrative of you moving around the world that makes it so much more interesting. It makes it so much more enjoyable. It's like reading a book that's been written in one day versus reading a book that's been written over a million years. So I say I would still recommend reading for a good life, but I would not so pretentiously say that it is required or anything like that. And David was also not saying that. I just thought that it was a really good discussion that he had going on there, and he touched on many topics that I've also been thinking about, probably because we both watch the same kind of channels and have similar ideas. So yeah, I'll refer you to his channel, which I will link in the description. And till then, I'll see you on the other side.